Good morning. This is an introductory study of Part 3 of Hegel's System of Absolute Science, the Science of Nature. We shall begin with an expanded review of yesterday's lecture, since some of you wanted more on the three main sciences of logic, nature, and spirit, and the concept's three UPI moments. History is now over. The history of philosophy on planet Earth is nothing but the universe becoming conscious of itself in the form of absolute universal science. Hence, the Greeks were right. The universe is intelligible. It can be understood. Most importantly, there is only one philosophy or science, which is in fact God's science or knowledge of himself, herself, which the university is destined to become. It was Plato and Aristotle who set the agenda by insisting that humanity exit the cave of multiplicity and separation and enter the reality of unity, or God's self-thinking thought, achieved in the modern period, first with Descartes' shift from objects outside us to our subject in consciousness, and finally with Kant, Fichte, Schelling, and Hegel's transformation of philosophy into absolute science, Wissenschaft, the unity of all the sciences. We must also note this. Now, for 200 years, our best minds have struggled to understand Hegel's logic, the master key to science, with varying success. There is growing consensus that Richard Winfield has finally cracked the code in his recent book, Hegel's Science of Logic, a critical rethinking in 30 lectures. As a result, the floodgates of absolute science are now open. So, tremendous kudos to Richard Winfield. Now, to do or engage in absolute science, or to know everything, the whole, you must first have the concept, and know that the concept, the self, is all reality. You must first have overcome the number one illusion of the separation of the concept, yourself, and reality, of subject and object, self and other. Hence, the introduction to absolute science, or Hegel's phenomenology. So with the concept in hand, you are now in a position to know everything in its essence. As Hegel says, quote, "The concept is alles, everything, and it contains within itself the infinite realm of all that is objective." Butler 2:12. Thus, to know anything truly, we just look for the determinations of the concept in nature and spirit, or intelligence, or in a given object of investigation. The moments of the concept are universality, particularity, and individuality, UPI. Thus, after you've achieved the concept via the introduction, you unfold its determinations in the science of logic, epitomized in UPI. And then you organize and translate the contents of the real sciences of nature and spirit, for example, physics, botany, anthropology, sociology, into the concept. As Hegel says, the absolute scientist simply, quote, makes the contents of the real or empirical sciences imitate the free, creative thought of the concept. Oh, and note, we don't impose the concept on a content or thing from the outside. since the thing already contains the concept's moments within itself. We just discern them. So, briefly, as to logic. What is logic? Logic is the concept or idea as pure thought enclosed in itself or unexpressed. It is the logos through which all that is was created, and Aristotle's highest thought, noesis noesios, self-thinking thought, God's essence, fully revealed and explicated. The key here in logic is this: thought is in motion, living, fluid, alive. The first thought category of the logic is being. All thought categories are contained in being, and they develop via the principle of all life, absolute negativity, the negation of negation, the unity of opposites. Thus, being becomes quality, quantity, measure, essence, ground, and appearance. Finally, unbeknownst to many, and as we stated yesterday, being becomes God, or kingdom come, olam haba, in the doctrine of the concept. But this is God, the absolute idea, kingdom come, or the concept, realized only in thought. Hence, we now move from thought to thought's opposite, nature. And since thought is reality, nature, matter, as its opposite, is nothing. And then, finally, to spirit, the unity of logic and nature, and to kingdom come actualized, which ironically the church and religion are unaware exists now. Just 3 more points. First, contradiction, passe today's Verstand logicians, is not unthinkable. Everything, says Hegel, has contradiction within it. Matter, life, emotions, desire. Take motion. The earth, as it moves around the sun, both is and is not in a given place at a given time. Second, Hegel's concept of appearance, the sense world, is unique and the opposite of that of Plato, Kant, the Buddhists, and the Hindus. For Hegel, the essence appears. It totally reveals itself and is not hidden in another world behind what appears. What you see is the essence. Essence and appearance are one. Third, as for the infinite or infinity, or being for self, contrary to what today's scientists believe, it can indeed be comprehended. It's not the indefinite, never-ending n+1 of the mathematicians, but is to be grasped only by the self-negation of the distinction between self and other, you and me, or finitude. To the other, it is I who am the other. Hence, I am on both sides of the wall, the limit. We are one. This is the infinite which can be comprehended. In Shakespeare's Juliet's immortal words to Romeo, quote, "My bounty is as boundless as the sea, my love as deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have, for both are infinite." Now, nature. What is nature? Nature is the concept, the idea, the truth, God, outside of itself, emptied into infinite space and time. Indeed, matter and all of nature, from diatoms to whales to planets to galaxies, is simply externalized thought or intelligence. Nature's science, the knowledge of nature, is accordingly divided into universality or mechanics, space-time matter and motion, i.e. universal matter, nature's foundation, particularity or physics, i.e. particularized or quality matter, the moment of difference, and individuality or organics. That is, individualized matter, the return to universality, but as concrete unity, life, the subject. Just 2 points. First, Hegel's position is that nature or matter is nothing. It's ideal. Quote, nature has vanished, end quote. Hegel tells us, on the completion of its process. So, how does nature vanish or set itself aside? Simply by moving from 2 to 1. Briefly, we start with space, with every point outside of every other point. No 2 points coinciding. Then space becomes matter, the unity of space and time, where points do touch. Here we have contiguity. And then matter yields to gravity, the first subject or unity, where all bodies or objects on Earth, for example, seek the same center or point. Then to a closer unity in physics, in the meteorological process, magnetism, electricity, and chemism. And then finally to life and the animal organism, where we see the unity of concept and reality, soul and body. The outcome is that the same soul in this point or finger here is the same soul in this point or finger there. All points coincide in one point. The outer externality, parts outside parts, is overcome. The truth is that matter has no truth. Second, because the organic, life, and the inorganic are dialectically interdependent, you can't have one without the other, there must be life in the universe, as today's anthropic principle and Gaia hypothesis both contend. And the human body or form is the perfect type from which all the other organisms are to be comprehended, not conversely. And finally, spirit or intelligence. What is spirit? Spirit is the idea returning back to itself from its otherness in nature. Spirit is the negation of negation, the unity of the opposites, thought and nature. We will say more about spirit in Lecture 8. Finally, a brief word on nature's place in the whole, the process of the absolute's becoming. This chart depicts the total context in which nature's highest form, life, the animal organism, is to be understood. Of absolute importance are the UPI, universal, particular, and individual explanatory moments of the concept, which is the veritable DNA of all the forms of nature and spirit. First, we have the highest division of the whole, aka the absolute, the idea, the universe, God. the division into logic, the universal, or U, nature, the particular, or P, and spirit, man actualized or God realized, the individual, or I. Note, in every case, the third is the unity and truth of the first two, the individual of the universal and particular. We then have, for example, the division of nature into mechanics, U, physics, P, and organics, I. Finally, the division of organics into the geological organism, U, the plant nature, P, and the animal organism, I. And the division of the animal organism into shape, assimilation, and the genus process or sex relation. Further, each moment of the concept, UPI, makes itself into a complete syllogism, Schluss, or close in German, and is the totality, or contains the others in itself. The syllogism, the close, is the unity of opposites. Briefly, in the case of shape or structure, U, the animal organism relates to itself, or closes with itself, through regeneration or consuming itself. The concept as soul closes or unites with its object, its body. In assimilation, P, the organism relates to another, external, inorganic nature, or it closes with an other, such as nutriment, which it converts into itself, into animality, a prime example of absolute negativity. In the genus process, I, which is the unity of the first two, of self-relation in relation to other, the organism closes with itself through copulation or union with another that is itself, its own kind. The result, which is also the result of nature as a whole, is both one, a new individual, the same as itself, and the preservation of the species, and two, the death or negation of the individual, which is at once the realization of the genus or universal as thought, and the transition to spirit or mind, the last and highest sphere of realities or God's self-actualization. Briefly, with regard to today's topic, mechanics, and its last category, the solar system, we can also see how it can be accurately comprehended by the concept's three UPI moments: the universal, the sun, the individual, the earth, and the particular, the lunar and cometary life. Okay, let's begin. Mechanics is divided into A, space and time, B, matter and motion, finite mechanics, i.e. relative motion, and C, absolute mechanics, or absolutely free motion, qua the solar system. Here we will see how matter forms itself into the bodies of the solar system. Again, let me remind you that our treatment is just an introduction to the philosophy or science of nature that will provide simply the basic tools enabling you to understand this highly important work. So, let's start with A, space and time, which also includes place, motion, and matter. Indeed, the main concern here is the deduction of matter, the reason why matter must exist, as well as motion. Our first question is not what is space, but rather why is space, or as Hegel calls it, self-externality. The simplest explanation, which Winfield and Baker also concur on, is that all determination is negation. That is, you can't have a domain of pure thought, inwardness, and non-extension, i.e. logic, without a contrasting, complementary domain simultaneously existing of externality, extension, or space, that is nature. Thus, given thought, or the idea as thought or inner, there must also necessarily exist space, being defined as 1. Self-externality, in which everything is outside of everything else, no 2 points of space coinciding, and 2. Indifference, where nonetheless there is no difference between any 2 points in space, each point being the same, since as yet we have no qualities or qualitative distinctions pertaining to spatial points. However, because space is in contradiction with the truth as revealed in logic, namely unity, where points or moments do not exist outside of one another, space must negate or transcend itself, i.e. undergo aufheben or sublation, and become time, which is the perpetual self-negation of space. That is, each time we advance from one moment to the next moment, all of space, all of its infinity of parts or points, all externality and indifference gets negated. 2 points in passing. First, it is circular motion that reveals not only that the truth and goal of time is the past, but that past, present, and future, before, after, and now are the same or one. As Hegel says at paragraph 214 Zusatz, quote, "This return of the line is the circle. It is the now, before, and after which have closed together in a unity, so that before is equally after, and vice versa. Circular motion is the spatial unity of the dimensions of time. The point proceeds towards a place which is its future, and leaves one which is the past. But what it has left behind is at the same time what it still has to reach. It has been already at the place which it is reaching. Its goal is the point which is its past. And this is the truth of time, that the goal is not the future, but the past. Second, in the last analysis, time is an illusion. That is, only eternity or the eternal now exists. Hegel writes on page 36, quote, "Eternity will not be, nor has it been. It is." Also, see Hegel's Phenomenology, page 492, Miller, where Hegel says, quote, "Time is abolished with the full actualization of the concept." Therefore, we now have the fusion or unity of space and time, which can also be called space-time, the two being inseparable. And this 100 years before Einstein. And there are three forms of this unity of space and time. The first is place, as the unity of here, or space, and now, or time, which of necessity leads to the second unity of space and time, motion, or change of place. That is, as Hegel states, since all places are the same, there being no difference between one place and another, there is no more reason to remain in this place than in the next or adjacent place. The result is motion, or change of place. Hence, it is motion that unites the first three categories of nature, bringing space, time, and place together. For example, in the equation, distance equals rate times time, or space equals motion, velocity, times time, we have point A and point B, 10 feet apart. Okay? So if we're moving fast, we can traverse the space in 1 second. If we're moving very slow, we can traverse A and B in 1 year. Okay? Matter is the third unity of space and time. Simply put, since there must be motion, there must be matter. As Hegel says, quote, "There is no motion without matter, without something that moves." And this is the deduction of matter, which parallels the deduction of being in logic. That is, being and nothing correspond to space and time, becoming corresponds to motion, and being there, Dasein, corresponds to matter. Becoming or motion coming to rest or stability as matter. So, we have now deduced matter and motion, which is the title of section B, also subtitled Finite Mechanics. That is, we must first deal with matter in relative or conditioned motion before dealing with matter in absolutely free and unconditioned motion, or self-moving matter, i.e., as the planets move around the sun. In finite mechanics, matter and motion, which Newton never got beyond, we have first inert matter. A body A will not move or change its place unless acted upon by an external force or body. Then secondly, thrust, where body A moves as a result of body B acting upon it. Then thirdly, falling, when body A moves as a result of an external force acting upon it. Here we have the beginning of gravity, qua attraction, but not yet qua repulsion as well. Lastly, in C, absolute mechanics, we finally have self-moving matter and the system of absolutely free motion, the solar system, the first process of nature. It is divided into universal gravitation, Keplers Laws, and the transition to physics. Now, whereas in finite mechanics, we had a conditioned unity of matter and motion, in absolute mechanics, we have an unconditioned or perfect unity of matter and motion. That is, in the former, matter or body moved only because it was acted upon by an external body or force. Whereas in the latter, bodies, i.e. the planets, move without external help. They move themselves around the sun. What is important is to understand why or what is responsible for matter forming and organizing itself into a solar system, a system of several bodies displaying absolutely free motion. The answer, in one word, is universal gravitation, or gravity, which is the true concept of matter. But how is this so? Or what is gravity? Gravity, and hence matter, is nothing but the unity of attraction and repulsion. See Logic, paragraph 241 for more. Ordinary or Newtonian gravity, as exhibited in falling, is just attraction, which as such is not able to account for our solar system and its dynamics. For if gravity were only attraction and not also repulsion, then all the planets would fall into the sun immediately. So gravitation must be or involve both attraction and repulsion. As Hegel says, it is repulsion that keeps the bodies, the planets, apart, independent, and at a distance from each other, while attraction keeps the planets moving around the sun, their absolute center. 3 points in passing. 2, here, as Hegel says, we also have 2 good reasons for understanding why matter ultimately is nothing, or has its sole truth in spirit, its opposite, as well as contradictory. Matter shows it has no true being in that it has its center outside of itself, or it seeks its center, its unity, and does not possess it within itself. In Hegel's words, page 46, quote, "The unity of gravity is only an ought, a longing, the most unhappy nisus to which matter is eternally condemned. For this unity does not come to itself or reach itself. If matter attained what it seeks in gravity, it would melt into a single point." Matter is secondly contradictory in that a planet revolving around the sun, or a body in motion, both is and is not in a given place at a given time. 3, we see here an all-telling distinction between the opposites, matter and spirit. Whereas matter seeks and has its center outside of itself, hence is dependent, spirit has its center within itself, and thus is independent, what Hegel calls being for itself. Section 2 is entitled Keplers Laws, deducing the bodies of the solar system, as well as proving that Kepler's account is far superior to Newton's. Now, since the solar system, the system of universal gravitation, is the realization of the concept, which is the idea, the bodies of the solar system must reflect the UPI moments of the concept, which, as Hegel notes, has not 3 but 4 moments, since, quote, at Miller, page 79, "In nature, particularity exists as a duality and not as a unity as in spirit." Hence, the 4 bodies of the solar system are the sun, universal, the moon and comet, particular, and the planets, individual. 2 points. First, the sun is the absolute central body, the moon and comets, the dependent centerless bodies, and the planets, the relative central bodies. And this is based on Encyclopedia Logic, paragraph 198, the syllogism. Second, these correlate with 3 kinds of motion. The sun has rotation motion around its axis. This body is related to itself. The moon and comet have rotation around a center, without their own rotation motion. These bodies are related to an other. The planet has motion around a center, the sun, along with its own rotation motion around its axis. This body is related both to itself and to another. There is a gem of Hegel which I cannot pass over without mentioning. It's incredible. On page 78 of Miller, Hegel says, speaking of the relation of the moon to the earth, quote, any position A of the moon, the peripheral body, always remains in the straight line joining the sun, the absolute center, and the earth, the relative center. This is actually incredible. Let me just show you exactly what we're talking about. The moon never deviates from the line connecting the sun to the earth. And it's orbiting around, and the earth's orbiting around the sun, etc. I think that's incredible. And to my knowledge, our scientists know nothing about this, which is quite astounding. Now, I will highlight for you again what I offer is the key to understanding the entire contents of Hegel's Science of Nature, namely the concept qua the solar system's 4 elements or moments. First, I will read a passage on page 80 of Miller. Quote, the planet is the syllogism which presents us with the whole. This quadruplicity of the celestial bodies forms the complete system of rational corporeality. This belongs to a solar system and is the developed disjunction of the concept. These 4 display in the skies the moments of the concept outside one another. Here, the concept's differences enjoy a free, separate existence. We shall pursue the solar, planetary, lunar, and cometary natures, note, through all the further stages of nature. The deepening of nature is nothing but the progressive transformation of these 4. Hegel underscores this in paragraph 271, Zusatz, where he says the following, quote, the totality of matter is posited only in the solar system as a whole. What the solar system is as a whole, matter is now to be in detail. In the solar system, the totality of form is the concept of matter in general. But from now on, says Hegel, the whole concept, the solar system, is to be realized in each specific existence, ultimately in life. So bear this in mind in all that follows. In a word, nature is 4 and spirit is 3. Now, a brief word on the transition to physics. As we said, the science of nature advances from matter to qualified matter to living qualified matter. Matter in mechanics is only quantitative. The bodies, the planets, are just masses or point masses, as the laws of general mechanics, of attraction, force equals ma, etc., treats them. When the quantitative is exhausted, as it is now, we necessarily move on to the qualitative. Matter begins to manifest itself. In other words, we began with total externality, the outer, which when completed compels us to go in, ultimately in life, to the soul or subject, then over to spirit, where nature transcends itself. As Hegel says at paragraph 274, Zusatz, we now move logically from being, mechanics, to essence, physics. Hence, In essence, physics, the four moments of the solar system, of the concept, are identity, difference, opposition, and ground. Thank you. See you tomorrow when we will begin our discussion of physics.